Hello and welcome back to Wreck and Rule. My name is Brian, and today I am pretty pumped up to share with you guys. This is the Street Fighter miniatures game. This was something that was on Kickstarter a number of years back. It's been delayed for a while, but it finally showed up at my door earlier this week. I've been slowly sleeving cards up and assembling some cardboard terrain that comes with the game as well, and was finally able to get a couple of games under my belt. So what I wanted to do for tonight was to kind of show you the basics of how the game plays, and also maybe give you some kind of early impressions of the components and the game itself. If you would like to see an unboxing video, there are a ton of them out there by now. What I will tell you guys is my recommendation if you were looking to get into it. You can pre-order. I guess they're shipping it out to people who backed on Kickstarter first, and then they have additional copies that are available to pre-order on the Jasco Games website. So check that out. The prices there, I believe, are a little bit higher than the Kickstarter were, but at the same time, I think that the prices that they're asking are basically on par with other games, especially games that have pre-painted minis. So I don't think, even with it being a little bit higher than Kickstarter, that it's a bad deal at all. Do be ready. Like, this is a miniatures game. This is not a board game. Although I probably would maybe call this more of like an arena combat type game rather than like a traditional miniatures game. But it's going to cost you a little bit more than a single board game is going to. But at the same time, the components here are pretty cool. The figures especially are awesome. Now, just very quickly, this is a combination card game and also dice game. So as you play, both of them will be important. Your character is going to have a pre-made 40 card deck. There's no customizing that deck. You do shuffle it before you play to randomize it, but each character is designed to play differently, have a different feel to it, fall under like a different archetype there. And I guess I should also point out that the base game comes with 6 fighters, and I'm going to go over them in just a moment. All right, so again, wanted to give you guys kind of a look at the minis that come in the base game. You get 6 fighters in the base game. Next up, first up, you get Ryu. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not 100% sure. So as I'm starting to show you guys here the figures, I should probably note that the extent of my Street Fighter lore knowledge goes to Super Street Fighter 2, which I played religiously on the Sega Genesis. After that, I don't know characters, and I don't really know necessarily how to pronounce some of their names, but we'll try to get through here. I do want to point out the paint jobs are really, really nice. They tend to have like little translucent special effects for the powers that that character has here. So we are gathering up our Hadouken, right? So Ryu looking sharp. And then each hero or traditional hero character is also kind of paired with a rival or a villain. So this is Sagat. I'm going to pronounce it as, I don't know if that's correct, but looks really nice, and also tall. Like, he looks pretty beefy compared to the other characters, which I think is how he's supposed to be. We also have Ken. Any people here that are Street Fighter fans, I always thought that Ken was kind of lame. I don't know, just a palette swapped. Ryu, although I think that there are gameplay differences, and I'm sure that there's also within this game here things that set Ken apart from Ryu, but looking good. Paint job also nice. Kind of a He-Man type look going on here, right? And then I'm going to at least thematically have Zangief be his rival arch enemy type guy. So Zangief looking awesome. Got the beard going on, got the mohawk going on. I don't know if these are like fresh slice wounds. I don't know if these are like brands that he's got. I always thought that they were painted on when I played the game, but I guess not. Like these, they're like etched in there. So again, my people who know the fluff, let me know if I'm getting any of that wrong. Zangief looking nice. And then of course, we also have Chun-Li. Try to focus, get her face there. Sorry guys, it's not wanting to cooperate very well. So I'm not going to force it, but also like looks very nice. I like the translucent effects here, looking really cool. And then of course her rival is going to be Vega, who is also looking sharp here. And then just some other important components to point out here too. Let me kind of like get the camera up a little bit. Bear with me. Sorry if this ends up getting blurry and I'm a little bit off kilter, but that's okay. So you have a double-sided map. On this side, you have kind of like a dojo, peaceful type of area. On the flip side, it is Guile's map of the Air Force Base, whatever it might be. And then each side also has terrain that comes with it. So this is the terrain that goes with this map. Guile's, let me see if I can show you guys real quick here. Guile's map has different terrain. You can kind of see it here, although there's another tree. Like there's some, I'll just get it out so you don't have to look at it through the container. You've got some like ammo boxes, ammo crate type deal here. Metal ammo crate. You got some like missile tray thingies. And of course, the all-important boombox, looking sharp here. And all of these things, it should be noted, are from cardboard. So you punch them out of the cardboard, you put it together. I will note to you guys that the boxes are a little bit tricky, so I do recommend using some glue to keep them together. Otherwise, they're not going to stay together. So it takes a little bit of time to put the terrain together, but it's not too hard. But again, though, you do want to have some glue. Recommend a little bit of super glue, a couple little quick dabs of super glue on there, and they'll hold together pretty well. So then here, obviously, you see the trees. You got some little rocks over here, and then you can't see it well. Some little kind of lantern thingies here too. All right, but yeah, looking nice. At first I was a little bit iffy about the fact that these were cardboard. At the same time, though, I think that probably it would be cost prohibitive if these were also painted miniatures. And if they were just plain old gray miniatures, they wouldn't look as cool. Like this looks nice. And another cool detail is every map has like a set way that the terrain's supposed to be. Obviously, if you want to change it up, you can change it up. But like where you're supposed to put the trees, it looks like kind of like where the leaves have fallen. It makes sense where the tree is. Like it's a cool little touch there. And then other components, there are also some tokens that are used in some of the different modes. There's a power-up mode, there's a tag team mode, there's a 2v2, 3v3, free-for-all type mode, so there's some tokens that go with that too. With the base game, you also get dice. We'll talk more about dice pretty soon. I will say that if you decide to get the game, I do recommend also getting an extra pack of dice. I don't know how well you guys can see the difference, but let me see really quickly here. So on the left, this is a red die, and then on the right, a purple die. You can kind of see it. And again, I'm doing a poor job of getting the camera to focus. There we go, that's better. So yeah, a slight difference, but I tell you on the table, they definitely look a lot more different than what you see right there. I do recommend getting an extra pack of dice. This way, if you have a second player, it's easier to have each player because the max you can roll on attack or defense is 8 dice. 8 dice come in the base game. You definitely want to get some more dice. So also, if you put that order in, get some more dice. In addition to that, there are some dials that are used to keep track of your health and also your meter. You have 6, so 1 for each fighter in there, and you could theoretically have 6 people all playing on one map if you were feeling crazy. And then you also have the aforementioned 60 card deck for each fighter. Each card has art that goes with that character, and there are some cards where there are certain cards that every character has copies of, and even those cards they have art featuring that specific character. So it's neat that you're not playing as Vega, and then all of a sudden you have to bust out like a Chun-Li card in terms of art. So it's neat that they put that attention into it. I will say, you don't get to, I don't get to feel this anymore, but the cards themselves, you guys can kind of see there, there is that kind of etched in image of Ryu. Those lines that you see are slightly raised, so it has a cool feeling to it. But I've got these in dragon sleeves, so I will never ever know that again. But they are nice, I will say that. So from there, I guess while I'm at it, I could also point out to you guys, we'll talk about the character cards themselves. So on one side, you have information that you need for the game. On the other side, you have some bio type of information for each character. So like during gameplay, you're never ever going to use this, but it's neat to have there. Better than just a blank back. So just basic stuff. On the character cards, it's not cluttered at all. You have obviously their name, you have their art, you have their move value, you have their health value. They also have an ultra, so if you can build up your meter up to 8, they can unleash that so that everybody has their own kind of like big bad special attack. So from here, what I would like to do is talk to you guys about the dice. So give me a second. Let me see if I can just tilt the camera downward to get that going. Okay, so that's better focus. So with the dice, there are a number of different sides. So the fist count for attack, and you're going to roll the same dice whether you're rolling attack or defense. And then fist get countered by shield. For the most part, unless you have a character that can let you like swap one for the other, on attack you're looking for, you want to roll these and you don't want your opponent to roll them. And then vice versa. If you're defending, you want to roll shields. You do not want the attacker to be rolling hits. There are some sides that have a double hit. Sorry, show you a little bit better there. There are some sides that have a hit and a shield in one. And then there are some sides that have this, and that symbol there allows you to build up your meter. And those are the dice. From here, next thing is we are going to talk about how to start the game. Okay, from here, I'm going to give you guys the basics of how to play. Now, I'm not going to run you through. This is not meant to be like a, watch it played by Rodney Smith type of detailed rules here. And I'm also not an expert on the rules. So I'm not going to try to give you guys an exhaustive reference guide here, but I do want to give you just the basics to give you a feel for it. So the game begins with you and the person that you're playing. You're going to end up choosing your character and your stage. So we're going to go with player A is going to be Chun-Li, and then player B is going to be Vega. So it begins with each player rolling 4 dice. So for Vega, we roll. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 hits, and then we will do the same thing for Chun-Li. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think that there's a tiebreaker. Didn't expect to have a tie, but let's go from here. So here we have 2, and then we have 1 for Chun-Li. So then here, Vega can choose if he wants to be player 1 or player 2. Player 1 is the one who's going to place their figure first, and from here, I'm going to adjust. You also would figure out with your with the other player what stage you're going to be playing on. Now I'm going to use this stage, the dojo kind of entrance area here, just because it is the one that I have ready to go. And let me show you a different view. So from here, you want to kind of get the board set up and get your characters all set too. One thing that you want to do is you want to set the dials for your character. So you guys can see with Chun-Li, she has a health of 24. So we go to her character tracker here. So 24 for KO, and that can spin as you take damage or possibly heal. Now for the meter, let me see if I can get this to focus. There we go. There was a printing error and there's no 0. You're supposed to begin at 0. So for now, you can kind of put it in between the 12 and the 1. I don't think characters can go over 8 anyway, so you don't really have to worry about that. So for now, you can put it between, or if you want, there are stickers that you can print from the Jasco website to just place over top and fix it yourself if you want to. I would recommend, and I'm going to do this at some point, to find either a very thin washer to kind of put in between. You can just pop these things off and then put the washer between the wheel and this piece of cardboard. There's also like small thin plastic you can also use for the same thing, but there's not much friction in these dials, so they spin really easily. So it can be very easy to like pick it up or move it and accidentally slide this and forget what your health was. So you definitely want to get some more friction to kind of keep these things in place. When you set up the map, in the rule book, there is a diagram to follow. And then obviously, like if you want to choose to customize it, that's on you to do. But there's spots where all the different terrain goes. And there are also starting points for the characters. There are primary starting points where if you're doing 1v1 and you're doing versus mode, which is what I'm doing, they would go there. And it's basically going to start you on opposite sides of the map. If you're doing like 3v3 or something like that, there are secondary starting spots that you can put them on if you'd like to. I know it's hard to see, but you guys can also see that Chun-Li's out there as well. And let me, from here, what I want to go over with you guys is kind of like the basic flow of the game. Now, what I will say is the game, when it begins, you would draw 5 cards. So for Chun-Li, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then here you also have a chance for a mulligan. So looking at your cards, if there is anything that you don't want, you can choose to discard them. You can discard 0 if you want to. You can discard all 5 and get 5 new cards. But either way, whatever you get rid of, you would just draw back up till you get to 5. So you have a chance to mulligan. And then from there, gameplay begins. And let me kind of readjust. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see a little bit better. And then we're going to also kind of basically begin in the middle of a game. Here we go. All right, so basically the game is going to go with player 1 kind of going through their turn, and then when they're done, it goes to player 2. They go through their turn, back to player 1, and then you keep on going until a fighter has been KO'd, right? Now, the way that the game is set up is that there are basically 3 phases. There is a draw phase, there's a move phase, and what they call a fight phase. Now, as I've been teaching, as I've been going through and learning the game with my wife, I find it easier to think of the fight phase as being an action phase instead, because some of the things that you do during that phase, they're not fighting, but it's relatively simple to follow. So the very first thing is, let's say that we are at our 5 cards, right? So very first thing that you do is you draw 2 cards. Now, if it is your first turn of the game, you skip that step. So player 1, they don't draw 2 on their turn. Player 2, same thing, they don't draw 2. But then when player 1 has their second turn, then they'll draw 2 cards. When they do that, if they have more than 7 cards, at that point they have to discard down to 7. So, you draw up to, you have 8 cards, you get rid of 1 card. Once you've done that, the next thing that you can do is you can move. And like I said before, each character has a printed move value. There we go. So for Chun-Li, it's 4. For most fighters, it seems to be 3. For some of the slower ones, it's 2. Now, when you move, you have no limitations whether you are moving orthogonally, which basically means for Chun-Li, I guess we'll use Vega for this because he's closer to the camera, it's more spot on. So orthogonal would be directly up or down or left or right, or you could also go diagonal. Okay, there's no limitations at all. So for Chun-Li going 4, we could go 1, 2 straight ahead. We could go 3 over here. We could go diagonal again to get to 4. All right, all of that, all good, all okay. Now, one limitation that you do have to take note of is that there are some spaces like right here on the map. That's not actually a space. There's no lines right there, so you can't go into there. Basically, you have kind of like an invisible wall along here. And if for some reason, like if I'm here and if Vega were to somehow like bump Chun-Li into the wall, she would take collision damage. And that's unblockable. You don't roll to defend it, like you just take it. And then same thing, if your character ever involuntarily lands onto a space that has terrain, okay, there's small terrain like this, there's large terrain like the tree. In terms of taking damage, same thing. So whether you hit the rock or hit the tree, you'd be taking 1 damage. Let's say that Vega were to throw Chun-Li here onto the space with the rock. You would get rid of the rock. It's out of the game at that point. And then Chun-Li would take 1 damage. The only main difference between large terrain and small terrain is that large terrain can block line of sight. Line of sight has the rule that a lot of games will follow, where you basically choose 1 corner of your square, and then you're trying to draw 2 lines to different corners of your opponent's square. If you can do that, and it's not going through that space with terrain, then you're okay. There are plenty of diagrams of that in the book, so feel free to look that up on your own. That's always something that can, there's some edge cases that get a little bit tricky, but it's all good. So just to recap quickly, because I got a little bit sidetracked there. Step 1, during your turn, you draw 2 cards, except for your very first turn. Very first turn, you don't do that. Step 2, you can move. You don't have to move, but you can move. You don't have to go your full distance. So Chun-Li can go 4. If she just wants to move 1, that's okay. If she wants to stay where she's at, that's okay too. Step 3 is called the fight phase, or again, like mentally, I think of it more like an action phase. There are a few different things that you can do during that phase. One thing is that you could take another move. So you basically get 1 move for free during that move phase, but you can also choose as one of your 2 actions in the fight here to move. So I could go 4 again. And like you can really kind of move pretty far across the map in that type of way. And you can do the same action twice. So if I wanted to move again, I could do that. I could have a total of 3 moves if I really wanted to. One of the limitations that I forgot to mention earlier is that you cannot voluntarily choose to go into a space with terrain. So there's a rock over here. I cannot have Chun-Li choose to go into that space. It's got to be something that you are kind of like pushed into or thrown into by the opponent, basically. Another thing that you could do is you could draw 2 cards. So if you wanted to draw 2 cards, you could do that. Same rules before. If you have more than 7 cards, you discard down to 7. You could play a card. A lot of times you'll do that for attacks, but there are also event cards as well. There are some event cards that are a free event card. If that is the case, that does not count towards one of your 2 cards, or sorry, one of your 2 actions that you play. And then the last thing that you could do is you could also trigger your ultimate attack or ultra attack. My bad. So yeah, you can see here, ultra attack. And there's limitations for that. So you do have to kind of pay attention, like here, range 1 and 2, that becomes important. Tells you how many dice to roll. There's other special keywords or qualifiers here. But the other thing about your ultra is that in order to use it, you do have to have 8 meter built up and ready to go. So again, just to run down one more time. First thing you do, on your turn, draw phase. Draw 2 cards. You have more than 7, discard down to 7. Second thing you do, move. You can move up to your printed value. If you want to move 0, you could also go 0. The third phase is the fight phase, but again, at least mentally, I think of it more like an action phase. During that phase, you could move. You could draw 2 again discarding down to 7, you get more. You could play a card. A lot of them are going to be attacks, but not all of them. Some of these are also event cards as well. Or you could also do your ultra attack, which is printed on your character card. And then once you're done doing yours, your opponent goes. When they're done doing theirs, it's back to you again. You keep on going until the character's knocked out. From here, I want to kind of talk about just a couple of things related to attacking, because that does kind of end up being like the biggest part of the game. So let me pause, let me readjust my camera, and we'll go to that. So from here, I want to talk about attack cards, because these do tend to be kind of like the most exciting part of the game. This is where the action really goes down. There are 3 basic kinds of attack cards. So there are strikes, which tend to be up close. You can see here it's at range 1. There are projectile attacks, which tend to be at a distance. You can see here range 2 to 5. And then there are specials, which tend to kind of like break those rules a little bit. They can be close up, they can be far away. A lot of them can be middle range. A few other things to take note of. So on these cards, it tells you up top how many dice you roll for that attack. There's a special kind of ability text in the middle. Sometimes there's also keywords that would be right about here. We'll talk about this bottom part in just a little bit. And then if you notice here, there are also kind of these little wheels of circles. And I know it's not focusing well for me right now, but you can see on this side here, it's yellow. These you can chain together as combos, which we'll talk about pretty soon too. But when you play an attack card, when you choose to play it as your action, you play it face down. So it's almost like a bluffing game between you and your opponent. So the idea here is when it's their turn to go, when it's your turn to attack, you declare your attack, and then they have to decide what they're going to do in response to it. So they could choose to defend. If they choose to defend, then they're just going to roll 2 dice as a basic defense. They can also discard. There are character-specific event cards. And let me find one quickly. I was lucky. So they can discard a character-specific event card. And up top, it tells you 2 defense. So you get to add 2 defense to that. So you would roll 4 total in that situation. Now, the part that hurts about that, though, is that oftentimes, like, these tend to be your more powerful cards. So you want to make sure that you're not choosing to do this if you don't think you're about to take a lot of damage. But you choose to do that before you know what that's going to be. So you don't know if it's going to be a little attack or kind of like a medium-sized attack. The big attacks, you have to play face up. I'll show you that soon. But like you do have to be careful when you choose to defend. So in that case, if they choose to block, then you would reveal your card. You would resolve anything important that you need to do. So for example, on some of the cards, and again, let me find you one really, really quick here. Here we go. So for some of them, there is a movement requirement. And let's see if we can focus. So here this says charge 2, right? So in this case, and let me just angle up a little bit for a second here. So for a charge 2, before I would attack, I would have to go 1, 2, directly closer to the enemy. For charges and dashes, you have to move in a straight line. And then from there, you resolve the attack. And then basically from there, you roll dice, and you're hoping to get more fists than your opponent gets shields. And let's say if you were to roll 2 fists and your opponent rolls 1 shield, they would take 1 damage, right? So it's the difference between fists and shields is how much damage they take. Now, let's say that when you went to go do that attack, let's say that you do your attack and they choose that they're not going to defend, right? So if you choose to block, sorry, if they choose not to block, if you choose to block, you have that guaranteed 2 block dice that might maybe save you, right? Or maybe you whiff, right? So maybe you mitigate some of that damage, or maybe you don't do as well. And it's almost always going to be that if you get attacked, almost always you're taking at least 1 damage. Like the way that the dice are set up, there are far more hits than defense symbols on there. So most likely you're taking some damage. The other thing that they can choose to do is that they can choose to counter. So again, you play your card face down. Now they could decide that they're going to counter. If so, they're going to play a card in reaction. Now the cards that you play to counter are going to also be attack cards. But if you notice, each attack card has a little bit of text down bottom, right? So here, the Vega player is guessing that the Chun-Li player is playing a special attack. So here, the attacker will reveal, and in this case, they guessed correctly. So if this is the case, the attacker, Chun-Li, their card gets discarded, and then for the defender, because they guessed correctly, they get to resolve what it says here. Do we want to focus? I guess not. I'll read it to you. So it says, place your character in a space adjacent to the attacker, deal 2 unblockable damage to them, and then draw a card. So you are rewarded for guessing correctly, and the attack that was coming at you is totally canceled. So they wasted one of their actions there. Now, let's say that the Vega player guesses incorrectly. So rather than guessing special, let's say that they guess instead strike, right? So here they guess a strike, but no, it was a special. So in this case, the defender's card is discarded, and they have no defense whatsoever. They don't get to roll defense dice. So whatever the Chun-Li player rolls for attack just goes through undefended, right? And then you go through, you resolve the attack. There's different keywords that you have to kind of like check out and resolve, and be good to go. So the other possible thing that you could do is there are some event cards that you can play, basically rather than doing a counterattack or for doing a block. Like maybe some of them kind of like move you away so that you're not even within range anymore. So there's also that as a third option for what you can do. So I guess the only other thing that I wanted to talk about here, and let me see if I can find one again quickly. That'll work. Okay. So I guess the last thing that I want to kind of briefly talk about is one other neat thing about this game is that you can combo your attacks together. So as your action, let's say that we play here this card, and let's say it does damage, right? So the attack needs to do damage for this to work. If the attack does damage, and if on the other side here, there's a color on that wheel, and then if you have another attack in hand that matches that color, so here we have blue, and then it's going to have to touch that circle. So we have another blue, boom, directly there. Then we can play this. But the prerequisite is that for that to work, that first attack has to hit. If it does hit, then we can chain that second attack onto here. And this does not count as a second action. So if you play that as your first action and you can chain another attack, you've not used your second action yet, right? Let's say if this hits, if I have another card, now here you can take a look, it's the same card, makes it easy. This is blue. If I have another card here with blue on that side, I could chain that one as well. And you can choose to stop that combo whatever point you want to. Now it is important to note that when you do that, you don't play the second attack face down, you play it face up, and that means that the other player can't counter that second part of the combo, but they can still block. they can try to stop the damage. But again, if the second one hits and also does damage, and you can chain a third one, you can go for it. I guess the other thing I wanted to mention too is another action you can play is an event card. Sorry, this is my second take doing this. I apologize if I'm repeating myself. So here, this could be played as a super, which even though it tells you to play it as a face-up attack, it's not really an attack. You're playing it as an event. So you play it face up. You don't play it face down. It's not that bluff type of thing. So you play it face up. You do have to spend 4 to do it. And then there's some special rule stacks. Basically, the meter symbol will count as a hit for this attack. And then you could also choose to do this as a free action, like if you really need 2 meter, like maybe you have the second one of these in hand, but you're not at 4 yet. So you need to get rid of this to play the second one. You can do that to ditch it as a free action and then play a second one. Again, free actions do not count towards your 2 actions per turn. These can basically be played at any point during that fight phase, or I call it the action phase to keep it simple for me, help it make sense to me. But you can't play it in between parts of the combo. You can play it before you do an action. You can play it after you do an action. You can do it between your 2 actions. You can do it before your first. You can do it right after your second one. You just can't do it between linking that combo together like we just talked about. From here, let me pause, go to something new. So as I mentioned before, part of the game is kind of bluffing your opponent. And what I'm going to assume is that as you play more and more, you kind of get to know what each character is capable of. Same as a fighting game. You kind of know certain characters are more dangerous at certain ranges, and maybe you know that certain characters tend to, as I've played Vega so far, Vega wants to kind of get in there, hit you, and then kind of move away to set up for another attack where he kind of moves in and kind of scoots back again, right? Other characters might be a little bit more projectile focused. They might want to keep at that longer range. My assumption is that when you're playing as Dalzim, right, who can stretch his arms and legs out, that he wants to kind of keep his distance and not getting close to you. So you start to know what the other characters are capable of doing. So there's also cards that are built into the deck that every player has access to. So for this focus attack and this bait, both characters are going to be able to, all characters are going to have access to both of these cards. So essentially what bait is doing is that you're trying to trick your opponent into wasting a card on a counterattack, like they're trying to guess what you're about to do. So you're maybe trying to make them discard their cards before you go for your big attack on your turn. And then if they choose to block, you can manipulate where they are. So this punishes that kind of defensive type of player. And there's also, same thing here, focus attack specifically is going to punish a player that likes to block a lot. And then this also can punish if the attacking player whiffed, which means that they did no damage. Then you can play this basically as a response to make them take 2 damage, like a quick boom, right off the bat, 2 damage, good to go. And then bait. So if you correctly guess that your opponent played bait, and then you play this as a counter, you get 2 meter, and then you deal 2 damage to the attacker, and you also get to draw a card. So the game can be played at a casual, beer and pretzels, have fun, smash into each other type of level, but it also does seem to have quite a bit of depth, where if you play it and you truly understand what your character is capable of and what the other characters are capable of, it does seem to reward you for that deeper knowledge as well. There's one more aspect of gameplay that I wanted to talk about, and that is, if you take notice here, so 2 prominent parts of some attacks, and again, let me see if I can, there we go, are either dashes or charges. You can see that beneath the dice on either side right there, the dice value for the attack. So let me show you guys a dash first. So we're taking a look here, and this has -3. So basically, you kind of resolve the movement part of the attack before you start to roll any dice. So here, as part of my attack, I'm able to -3. So for a dash, you have to move in a straight line. You can't change your direction. You also you can't be impeded by terrain or other figures. By which I mean, like if you're doing a multiplayer type of match, if Ryu was right there, not able to dash. However, when you do a dash, you don't have to go the full movement. So I could dash 1, 2, and be okay. Dash is up to, right? And you just need to end your movement adjacent. So here, obviously, right, I've dashed, I'm definitely adjacent. I could also be, let's say, Chun-Li is here. I could dash 1, 2, 3. I could go to there, or it could go to here. Okay, either one is a straight line, either one is adjacent. Charge works a little bit differently. So if an attack has charge 3, as this one does, then here I've moved 1. Now for that second move, I'm going to basically take that character with me. So as I move my next space, I am bumping Chun-Li back. So that's 2. And then for the third one, it's going to put her in the same space as the tree. So at that point, there's a collision. She would take 1 unblockable damage, and we'd be set. Now, let's say if she was here, and if Vega is in this spot here, and if he charges, so we would go here 1. Now she's at the edge of the board, and there's basically an invisible wall here. So if Vega kind of like moves 1 more space, right, she would be off the board, but there's no off the board in this game. So instead, basically she kind of hits that invisible wall, bounces back into it. She takes an unblockable damage for colliding with that invisible wall. One other aspect I want to talk about here too is let's say that you were doing that multiplayer game. Characters colliding into other characters also cause damage. And that's it. There's some more nuances to that, but like multiplayer games, I definitely don't have under my belt, so I don't necessarily want to talk about that too much right now because I would not know what I'm talking about. And that's basically right there the essentials of gameplay. Now, obviously, as you kind of play more, you're going to pick up more about it. And there's definitely nuances that I was starting to figure out. I've not seen the Matrix yet, right? Like I haven't fully kind of like, things have not quite fully clicked, but they're getting closer in my mind for kind of like the different possibilities and intricacies and complexities that exist within this game. Although again, I think you could definitely have like you and your buddies just each grab a figure, do a 6-player free-for-all, and kind of go nuts. And that actually does truly sound fun to me, especially as each player kind of learns a little bit better how to play. I think after the first game that you play, you have a pretty good understanding of the system for the game and how it works. And then like your second game is going to go faster. From here, just before I wrap things up, I guess what I want to show you guys quickly, I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I do want to kind of show you the Kickstarter exclusives, because again, I think that if you get into this game, even though having these 6 fighters is really cool, if you play this a lot, you might get tired of these 6 fighters, right? Now, my assumption is probably that, you know, Ryu and Ken are probably the Mario and Luigi of this game. Chun-Li seems to have some cool stuff about forcing your opponent to discard cards to limit their hand, and that seems pretty neat. Zangief, it seems like he just wants to get close and throw you. There are throw attacks in there with the throw keyword where your opponent doesn't get the block. So like if they chose to block, they're screwed because they have no block dice. They're just going to eat that damage. And then I'll be honest, I don't know what Sagat does. And I also don't know if I'm pronouncing Sagat correctly. So I want to very quickly just show you guys what the Kickstarter exclusives are. We'll talk about that, and I'll kind of wrap up with my impressions. All right, and I know I told you guys I wouldn't do an unboxing, but again, if I'm going to tell you that I think that you should get the Kickstarter stretch goals if you decide to jump into this, let me at least show you why. So you can see the silhouettes of all the different figures that you get here. Let me crack this open. It's a big box. All right, so I don't know much about this, but there's that stage that popped up randomly in the middle of playing where you beat the crap out of the car. That is there. Okay, I guess you can't choose blocking. There's a different mode you can do. There are some maps, and you can also kind of like jury rig this together and do this on a normal map, but basically you can make it so it's 2D so that you can't kind of go all around. You either go forward or back, and that's pretty cool. I guess there's like a tournament type of thing you can do. Some exclusive terrain over here, but what you guys want to see, I'm sure, and I'll make this quick, is all of the minis. So you can see here, this is apparently like an evil Ken. I don't know, not really something I'm an expert on. T-Hawk from Super Street Fighter 2. Balrog, who I kind of would have liked to have seen rather than Zangief in the starter. He just kind of seems like, you got those last three kind of like big bads. You've got Sagat, you've got Vega, you got Balrog before you fight M. Bison, right? E Honda looking really cool with the little slappies going on there. Got Cammy over here. Guile looking sharp over there. DJ over here. We've got, this is like an evil Ryu. At first I thought it was a second Akuma. I'm wondering why they're giving us that. But no, evil Ryu, apparently. I don't know this old guy, but he is apparently like a mentor to Ryu, if I'm not mistaken. He also can apparently be played as a boss as well. I don't know his name. Let me show you the other stuff. Just bear with me. Some protective layers. This is that arcade thing. This is the 2D map. All right, let's show you guys this second clamshell thing. All right, so part of this is, most of this is everybody's deck that we just talked about. I need to still sleeve those up. This is the car thing. There's a misprint on it somehow, somewhere. I guess they only showed you the beat up version of the car or something, so they gave you stickers to put onto the other side, which I've not done yet, to have like the clean version of the car. Just again, I've not had time to do it. I'll do it eventually. So here, this lets you play the old guy as a boss. Oh, here's the car tiles. I don't know what's going on here. There's something about it, like, I'll be honest, I've not been paying attention to the Kickstarter news and updates, so they explain it, but I just don't know off the top of my head. And then we've got 4 other minis, but this tray is heavy. Let me see if I can pop these out without snapping stuff. So over here, we've got Blanca, right? Looking cool. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say Blanca because I assume it's not Blanca. We also, of course, have Dalzine. Looking cool. I don't know if that's Yoga Fire or Yoga Flame, but looking awesome. I like the cross-legged pose here. We have Fei Long, Budget Bruce Lee, and we also have, this was apparently just kind of like a extra thrown in there. It's kind of a shame. So I don't know, Darth Cammy, like, she's Cammy and Bison gear. Exactly why, I don't know. I think there's some story of like he cloned her or she's like brainwashed by him or something. But it's kind of a shame that they've not done a custom deck for her. I do know that on like the Street Fighter miniatures game like Discord, which has a lot of great info. Like I know I said I've not been paying attention. I really haven't, but definitely check it out. There's a lot of good info there you can check out and find. People super passionate, like custom modes on there. Someone has put together a solo AI mode, like a lot of neat stuff. I think somebody has constructed a like dark cami um, deck through like a fusion of her deck and Bison's deck, which might be cool to check out. But it's a shame that she did not get her own deck in there too. So again, my advice to you to get in is going to be to get the base game, get this, which you can order this, you can pre-order it, and then really like go a little bit more gung ho, and also grab the boss expansion with M Bison and Akuma, which I'll show you up next. So next up, let me show you guys the boss expansion. So this has M Bison and Akuma in here. So when you open this bad boy up, pretty densely packed, right? So you've got a rule book for playing in boss mode where you have one player playing as one of them as the boss, and then you have multiple players playing as just regular characters, and the regular characters have to take down the big bad boss, which is cool. In the future, I'd love to see them develop this into where the boss is AI driven. This way, the players are teaming up cooperatively against the AI. Would be cool. And then that way, you could also easily play it solo if you wanted to. And that is something that, as you guys know, more and more I'm coming to appreciate. So when you crack open the box, you want to get to the good stuff here. So there are boss styles for both. Let me tilt this up. These figures are kind of tough to take out of the plastic, and I don't want to snap them. So let me just kind of show you. There's M Bison and there's Akuma right there. Give you a closer view a little bit. I like the two different colors here for the translucent. Looks pretty cool. Of course, the purple for M Bison. So I don't know a ton about the boss mode, but this seems to offer like specific conditions that might be in play. And of course, we're not going to focus. So this is especially for the boss deck. There are cards to play M Bison and Akuma as boss decks, right? They've got much higher health, 40 in this case. But they also come with decks that allow you to play them normally, to play, in versus mode or whatever. It's pretty cool as well. And then I'll be honest, I never played any of the games where Akuma was there. I know people love him. I just have no attachment to him. I know he apparently comes in and like murders M Bison out of nowhere, blew people's minds in the arcades back in the day. But M Bison, again, I'll tell you guys, I loved Super Street Fighter 2. I had to get my hands on him. So there he is, looking cool. All right, so let me hit you guys up with my impressions here. So overall, I have to say that I'm really happy that I decided to back this game. I think that there's a lot of game in here, especially if you go for the core box and if you add in the Kickstarter exclusive box, and then if you also add the boss expansion with M Bison and Akuma, you have even more on top of that. I think with that right there, like that's basically your Super Street Fighter 2 lineup right there. You have a whole bunch of characters. You have a lot of different modes you could play. Like that's gonna keep you busy for a while. So that would be my suggested starting point. It's going to be a little bit pricey to get into, but I think that it's if you have somebody else that will play with you, or if you have like a gaming group, I think that this is something that could be fun either as a one-off thing that you do every now and then, or if you want to kind of like get heavy into this and you want to play it, you meet every week, you have like a Street Fighter night, boom, good to go. I did mention earlier that they are intending to kind of build this out. So I believe that later this spring, they're going to have a Kickstarter for a Mortal Kombat version of this. And the systems are going to line up to where they will be compatible with each other. And I believe that their eventual goal is to bring other franchises into this as well. So that seems really cool. I would love to get some like Dark Stalkers action going on here. I would really love to get some Marvel action too, but I just don't know if that's a possibility or not. So I think that again, even though it can be pricey to get that like strong starting point, I do think that's how you want to go here. Couple things. So number one thing that I kind of wish that they would do is that I wish that the iconography were maybe a little bit more clear. So like maybe a little bit more contrast between the number and then the die or like that symbol in the background. Um, this is fine right here. I think this is fine too. If they could maybe make like special or projectile or strike a different color to make that stand out, I think that would also be good, just to make it more from like a visual standpoint easy to identify that they've matched up. Just make gameplay go a little bit quicker. Um, I think same thing here though. I think that like this is the ultra. Come on, this right here is Chun-Li's ultra. Come on and focus. Her ultra attack, which you can't see. All right, maybe that's a little bit better. But I wish that like visually or kind of like layout wise or graphic design, that there was just something to make this stand out a little bit more, so that we know that like this is her ultra. This is going to be like big, bad, awesome, ready to go. I think that they also, and again, like this is something that is pretty new for everybody involved, but like these, we have to find a way to get this friction on this a little bit tighter. I don't know if we need to redesign these little peg things or not. Like this has to also be a little bit tighter. There's also just little here and there kind of QC issues. I don't know how well you guys can see, but like this map kind of bulges up in the center here. There's not really much I can do other than maybe weighing it down with something overnight to fix that. But again, I also kind of feel that when I fold the map back up to put it back into the box, that it's going to kind of work the same way. It's going to come back up again. And I think that again just might be people behind this Kickstarter just kind of new to the process of this. They kind of got that knowledge under their belt. They're going to have a stronger outing the second time around for whatever they do. Other things that I would say, I mentioned it before, but like the boxes for the terrain, like I just wish the friction tolerances were a little bit tighter so that they went together without needing the glue. Overall, though, none of that is big stuff at all. So again, I'm happy with this. I'm really happy with this. I think that this is going to be a lot of fun to mess around with. I'm hoping that once COVID kind of clears up a little bit, that this is something that I can take and play with the rest of the crew and get like a couple of games under our belt with better camera setup. This is what I have at my house rather than Joe's house. This is not the ideal setup, right? But I'm kind of making it work as best I can here. So my recommendation here is definitely, if this is something that appeals to you, whether because you're a fan of the franchise or if you're a fan of this kind of like arena combat skirmish miniatures type of game, this is going to be awesome. It also kind of makes me wish that there was a Street Fighter kind of like more Super Smash Brothers clone, especially after playing on the Nintendo Switch with my daughter, and like I think Ryu and Ken are both characters there. Like if we could have like a 3-on-3 kind of like crazy match going on for Street Fighter, that would be awesome. Especially now that they're willing to be a little bit goofy. If I'm not mistaken, I think Zangief shows up in the Disney movie that I'm blanking out on, Wreck-It Ralph. Okay, so if they're willing to be a little bit goofy, I think that would be awesome. But it's not related to the board game. Other stuff that I might say, Angry Joe, who is the designer here. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about his channel. Like I know it's huge. I know that he reviews video games and movies and stuff, does skits. This was a passion project. Like he was kind of the main designer here, along with Alex Toon or Alex Tooney, however you pronounce it. I apologize if I messed it up and I don't have the exact pronunciation there. So a couple suggestions in case you, for some reason, decide to watch this. I would love to have the option of a neoprene mat as something to play on, just because it feels easier sliding characters around on. Don't have to worry about it getting scratched up. You don't get this kind of like bulging type of issue there too. Don't have to worry about it tearing, none of that. So for round 2, maybe consider that neoprene. The other other thing I might say too is, especially if you guys want to go like Kickstarter exclusive stuff, to maybe differentiate it from people who pre-order it or like buy it at retail, however that might go. Like maybe consider foil cards would be pretty neat. Like to have character card be foil, or maybe the supers in the deck have that be foil. Or I don't know if you guys intend to do like an organized play type of system, that might be something cool to do. I mean, that's basically it. I'm really impressed by this. Thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you for watching. If you watched this entire thing, I know I'm a little bit rambly, but like I've told you before, with the way that the world is right now, the way that my job is right now, I can basically record these after midnight on the weekends. So the brain is a little bit scattered at that point. Until then, I hope that you guys are safe. I hope that you are getting by as best you can. Take care of yourself and your families and your friends. And I will see you soon, hopefully.